What up everyone? Today I'm going to be taking these official Pokemon designs designed by Gamefreak and imagining what they would look like if they actually made it into the final cut of the game. If you need some added context, let me explain. So, a little over 20 years ago, the developers at Gamefreak began working on coming up with new Pokemon designs to put in their third generation games. Most of them looked about the same. Some of them were dropped, but at least still looked like they could have been Pokemon. And then there's these designs. For reasons unknowable to me, Gamefreak took out their pencils and watercolors and designed the most hard-looking monsters imaginable. Monstrosities that look like they might better fit in a Dark Souls game than a Pokemon game. It is worth mentioning, however, that the higher-ups must have seen potential in these designs, because they actually did put two of them into the games. Sort of. This illustration is the beta version of Cacturn, and this illustration is likely the beta version of Metagross. I found this dramatic change inspiring, and decided to imagine what the other nightmare monstrosities would have looked like had they made it into the final cut of the game. Yeah, I think that's all the context we need. Let's start with this guy right here. Partially invisible dog. It looks like its skin can go transparent, or maybe that it can move in and out of reality. Sick idea for a Pokemon, but let's see what it'd look like in-game. There are dog Pokemon that look sort of like this, but Houndoom came out the generation before, so this is definitely not a beta version of Houndoom. It could have gone on to inspire Zygarde's puppy dog form. I'm terrible with names, by the way, so help me out here. Let me know what you would name this. Real quick side note, after I started editing this video, they actually did dig up some beta sprites for this Pokemon, so I guess this is closer technically to what it would have looked like. Still, I don't know if it fits in really with other Pokemon, so let's stick with what we got. Moving on to this frickin' thing. So this appears to be some sort of rock-type Pokemon, with tree frog legs, and a pillar tail that it can wrap its legs around. It's definitely over-designed for a Pokemon. Along the side you can see hundreds of Unown. At first I thought it had no face, which, you know what, some Pokemon don't have any faces, that's fine. But I decided to give it this blank-looking tree frog face just for fun. However, it was pointed out to me that this Pokemon design actually does have a hidden eye in its design. If you look closely at the bottom, there it is. So I switched it up and I think this design actually looks a lot better. Clearly Unown are incorporated into this Pokemon's design, but that single eye makes me think they might actually be more related than I originally thought. It would be mind-blowing if this was supposed to be an evolved form of Unown. Or maybe you summon it by gathering a lot of Unown, I'm not totally sure. Either one would be cool and it made me love this design even more. Oh, one other thing to talk about with this design is that its tail is sort of shaped like Missing No. It would have been super cool if Gamefreak decided to canonize this as an actual Pokemon. Okay, let's move on to this thing. It appears to be a lizard mixed with a gorilla. Some are speculating this is a beta version of Groudon, which I could totally see. Granted, you'd probably have to change the name of Team Magma. This looks like it'd expand the Earth with sand rather than molten lava. Though we do already know about this other beta Groudon sketch. Either way, I think it has potential to be a very cool looking Pokemon. And yeah, I would probably make this a legendary. Not much to talk about, I simplified the hair a little bit and gave it fewer rocks. Seems like it'd be ground and rock type to me, but let me know what you think. Okay, let's move on to this blue beast right here. Something that I wanted to keep in mind when making these Pokemon is that the OG artist himself, Ken Sugimori, once had this advice for designers. He said they should always try and add at least one silly element to the design, that way it becomes more memorable. It doesn't have to be 100% totally cool. I would say all of these sketches kind of fail in that regard. They all look like they're overly cool. So what silly thing could I add to this guy? I noticed it didn't have any eyes. What if I gave it a silly sniffer to fit Sugimori's design philosophy? So for this guy, I made him sort of an anteater aardvark thing. Maybe a truffle pig? He obviously doesn't have eyes, I just closed them and made them sleepy. It obviously can't see, so I imagined it using its sniffer to smell around for food instead. Also, the original had way too many claws. That's like 100 claws. Pretty easy to just cut those down. Though another aspect of the design did stand out to me. It is covered in these craters that look pretty similar to the Tyranitar line. And that got me thinking, what if this was actually supposed to be a split evolution for Pupitar? It even is sort of the same colors. Okay, hear me out, what if it was like Ninjask and Shedinja? When Pupitar evolves, its shell gets discarded and inhabited by this guy right here. Thought it'd be a cool theory and wanted to see what it would look like. Anyone who knows more about Godzilla, let me know if this could possibly fit in that canon. Okay, now let's move on to this werewolf fish monster. Again, why are there so many fingers? I guess in this case it does look a little silly already. Not totally sure if they meant for it to stand upright like a mermaid type thing, or dragging its tail around like a seal. And the texture seems really overdone for a fish. Simplified it down and made it this buff looking fish guy. I think it's a little bit silly, but just in case we want to simplify it further to fit Sugimori's vision, I also made it this dumb fish dog right here. Speaking of dogs, or maybe those are cats? Whatever they are, there appears to be two versions of the same Pokemon, or maybe it's a pre-evolution and an evolved form. Started with this guy that looks like it has a rocky lion's mane. I feel like it didn't need too much to simplify it down, and really just kind of changed the art style. Maybe later on they could reuse this design and make it a regional form of Luxray? I don't know. But then I noticed something about this littler one right here. Again, I didn't know if it was a dog, cat, or a fox, which is kind of a thing for evolutions. And this one almost eerily looked like it could be a rock or ground type evolution. So let's see what that would look like. Its ears definitely do look silly, but this could be one of my favorite evolutions. Just let me know what type you think fits best. Okay, the next beta Pokemon we have is I'm not sure if that's a potato or a walnut. I'm gonna go with a walnut. I've seen some people speculate that this is a beta version of Clamperl because it's Gen 3, but other than opening up like a clam, it doesn't look anything like Clamperl. Nor does it really look like a clam. I feel like this is probably based on some sort of yokai that lives in a walnut, but searching around I couldn't really find anything that fits that description. So if you know of what the heck this could be, let me know. In the meantime, let's see what it would look like as an actual Pokemon. I feel like this would probably be Ghost and Grass, or maybe Ghost and Rock, I don't know. Again, help me give this Pokemon a name, and let's see what it would look like if it closed the shell. Okay, seeing it like this definitely makes me feel like it's somehow related to Forretress, but that came out in Gen 2, so this couldn't possibly be a beta version of it. I think its ability would have it switching between the closed form and the open form. Not sure how it would work though. Here we can finally finish with one last design. Not gonna redo the Metagross, it seems like it would just be Metagross. This beta Cacturn looked so different that it got me thinking that this could have been a really good Paradox Pokemon. It literally already looks like it's a dinosaur version of Cacturn. One challenge is it's kind of hard to gauge perspective on these designs. At first glance, you might think it has a pointy hat like Cacturn, but looking closer, you kind of see that it has a flat head with two eyes on top. Whoa. I wonder if the final designers who made Cacturn also misinterpreted that. Anyway, here's my attempt. Nothing too surprising, but it would have been a sick Paradox Pokemon. Again, help me name it, but it has to be a Paradox Pokemon name. Anyway, that's all. Like and subscribe. Thanks.